Greetings, HD students, and here we go. We are going to jump into kind of the fun part of middle adulthood, and that is what's going on emotionally, psychologically. So remember, we're always talking about Erik Erikson, the theorist, when we talk about psychoanalytic theory. And Erikson says there's 8 stages that all of us go through, and hopefully we're successful in overcoming them. And here we have this particular stage coming up for our middle adulthood, and it's called generativity versus stagnation. And I will explain kind of what that means to you, right? Realize that we continue to grow well into late adulthood. So in other words, there's not a place at 50 or 70 where all of a sudden we stop growing. We just kind of deteriorate. That's not the case. Erikson proposes that we continue to learn new things. We can actually, you know how they say, there's this saying that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? That's not always true. It's not, because we can actually adapt and learn to get healthier or to get better, right? So we continue to develop well into our adulthood. All right, so remember think back, we talked about adolescence, and when we talked about adolescence, we talked about identity versus role confusion. We then moved on to young adulthood, and we talked there about this intimacy versus isolation. And here we are, we're going to talk in this middle adulthood stage about generativity versus stagnation, and then we'll talk about late adulthood, eventually talking about integrity versus despair, right? Let's see here. So Maslow's stages, let's see. Remember how we talked about that triangle, that hierarchy? And we talked about how we go through these different levels, and we have to accomplish level 1 before we get up to level 2 and level 3, etc. Let's see if I have a picture of it here. Yeah, okay, awesome. So we said, first of all, our basic needs have to be met first. Food, water, shelter. And then we go on to safety needs, right? Not only do I have to have a home, but I need to feel safe and secure in that home. And that third level in this triangle is what we call love and belonging. We want to be a part of groups or family. We want to be loved. And that's what we're saying here. When we say people in that third level of Maslow's triangle of the hierarchy of needs, they seek love and belonging. All right, so let's see. Our romantic partners, I kind of mentioned before, we'll talk together again here. Research really shows us that people that are married actually, they're happier, healthier, and have more money than those who stayed single and never married. That's research proven. Cohabitators, so people that live together, but they're not married, they can expect to marry, for those of them that you're living with someone because you want to marry them, but you're testing the waters first, if you will, that's better than living together for convenience. So you're friends or roommates, right, that you share bills with, right? And then living together apart, this is couples that are together, but they're not living together. So for instance, I have a colleague that teaches out of the SUNY University in New York, and her partner teaches out of the University of Tennessee. So they live in different states. They have a child together. They're raising a child together. Every month, one of them makes the trip to the other one's place of residence. Now, they're hoping that one of the colleges will open up a position that one of them can move so they can be together. But they are living together apart. They don't date other people. They are in a committed relationship. So we talked before about the age that we get married tends to be a little older than it used to be, right? But in general, marriage is a good thing in the sense that research shows that you're actually healthier, happier, and wealthier. So long-term committed relationships correlate with lifelong health and happiness. So long-term committed partnership, that doesn't always necessarily mean marriage, right? That could just be a monogamous relationship, meaning one, you don't date other people, it's just the two of you, but you're not actually married. But having that committed partnership is better than just kind of dating around. Adequate income is correlated with marital satisfaction. I've mentioned before, I teach marriage and the family, and the three, killers of relationships, if you will. Number one is going to be infidelity, unfaithfulness. Number two is going to be communication issues, not being able to talk about your problems in a healthy way. And number three is definitely going to be finances. When we don't have to fight with our partner about money, we can talk about a whole lot of more pleasant things. And so remember, adequate income means you make enough money to pay the bills. It doesn't mean you get all of your wants, because there's a difference between our needs and our wants. And so adequate income, being a good steward or a good money manager. And in life management class, we actually go through money management, because I think, again, it's really important that we understand how to handle money. Right, sorry, I kind of missed here that empty nest syndrome. Empty nest syndrome is when you have children and your children fly the coop, or they go off to college. They move out and you and your partner are home alone, and it's like all of a sudden you're staring at your partner like, whoa, we can go travel. We can go get to know each other again. We can go do some fun things. And that's the empty nest syndrome. We mentioned before that our homosexual relationships are very similar to our heterosexual relationships. The one differing thing might be whether or not we have the support of family and friends, because that is really crucial, or that can be a really positive boost in our relationships within ourselves if we have that support. All right. So we talked about divorce before. There's lots of consequences of divorce. It reduces income. When we have people that are married, they're combining their assets. They're combining their money. They're combining anything they owned. And then when all of a sudden this couple gets divorced, now you have two households. Dad or mom or whoever has to move out and support themselves. So now we're splitting up the money. And now if we have friends, we make our friends choose. So are you going to go with him or me? Who's it going to be? Who do you back? Right? And so now our friends can't be friends with the other person. It becomes really, kind of difficult. Rates of remarriage are highest for those who have the most education. It's pretty fascinating, right? It's kind of like we go to college and we go to school and we think, I figured out what I did wrong last time. And so this choice is going to be better. Not always the case. Midlife crisis. So understand, and you know what a midlife crisis is, right? So most people will say a midlife crisis is when someone kind of makes dumb decisions. So for instance, you have an individual who has been married for 35 years, they have 4 kids, and one day they leave their wife, leave their kids, and say, I'm running off with the 19-year-old secretary. And I'm 55, right? So we kind of say, oh my goodness, he was going through a midlife crisis. That's the only reason he would do something so dumb. However, what we're going to tell you is there's really no such thing as a midlife crisis. In other words, there's nothing going on in the body or inside of us that causes us to throw caution to the wind or to abandon people that were important to us at one point in time. There's nothing that happens there. Now, we mentioned andropause last time. An andropause for males is a reduction in testosterone. Menopause for females, again, is a reduction in estrogen. Neither of those have caused this midlife crisis to happen. This is what I really think happens here, is somebody gets to be 50 or 60 or however old it is, and they reflect. They step back and say, I'm 60 years old. Is this what I thought I would be doing when I was 60? Am I happy in my current relationships with my family or whatever it be right now? And if those answers come back with a negative feeling or unhappiness, they make a drastic change and feel like, well, I need to go make myself happy. And not always the best thing or the best approach to making changes. We can make changes in our life for the better, no problem, but maybe not drastic decisions, right? You don't want to go blow all your retirement on a Maserati or a $200,000 sports car. We don't want to make decisions like that. And we certainly can't blame it on a midlife crisis. We're going to blame it on the individual. All right, so let's talk about personality. So when we talk about personality traits, we talk about the big five. And the acronym we use is the word OCEAN. So acronym means that the word OCEAN, for every letter of the word OCEAN, stands for something. So OCEAN, the first one is openness. Some of us are really more open than others. Some of us are the kind of people who are like, yeah, sure, I'll try that out. I'm open for new experiences. Yeah, I've never eaten Cantonese food, but I'll go for it. Hey, you want to go climb a mountain? Okay, I've never climbed before, but I'm willing to try it. We're open to experiences. Others are not like that. Others are like, nope, I have my routine. I have my schedule. I don't go outside that. I'm good. And so they're not as open. Conscientiousness. This really means people who are very thinking of others. They're very obedient. They're very self-disciplined. They don't want to disrespect you in any way. They're very conscientious of you. Extroversion. People who are extroverts are usually very outgoing. They're assertive. They're active. They have these charismatic personalities. They're the kind of people that can talk and we listen. They capture our attention. Agreeableness. Agreeableness really means that I'm pretty easygoing. I'll go with the flow. I'm not high maintenance. High maintenance would be the opposite of agreeableness. High maintenance would be that, no, I don't want to eat there. Yes, you need to make my food this way. Yes, you need to do this. You need to buy this laundry detergent because that's the kind I have to have my clothes washed in. They have lots of different issues. Agreeableness would be the kind that's like, oh yeah, sure, whatever. We'll go with the flow. Very giving. And neurotics or neuroticism has to do with people who are very critical. They're very kind of up and down as far as moods go. Not always the most pleasant to hang around because they bring the mood down, really. And we're going to see that these five personality traits are really apparent in every culture and era. In other words, in every generation and in every different ethnic group or culture, we kind of can place people in these different places. And when we talk about personality, here's some positives. Typically, as we get older, we get less neurotic. So we're less moody, we're less self-centered or focused on the self, a little more open, right, and more agreeable and conscientious as we age. Remember, we are going to need people for the rest of our life. That's why I tell you, I hope the one thing you walk out of this course learning is you cannot be an island unto your own. In other words, it's not good for you to be alone. It's not. Surround yourself with friends, family, people that have similar interests or opposite interests, but they really push you, motivate you, all of those things. But we need intimacy through relationships, not talking about romantic relationships, but people relationships. All right, our friendships improve as we age. This is a good thing. So we get better. We kind of gain some wisdom when it comes to our friendships. When we're younger, we tend to be very black and white. Like, okay, you have some friends, you shared some secrets or some intimacy with that person, and they blabbed. You're like, forget it, we're done. Like, you're off, I can't trust you again, so that's it. As we get older, we get a little bit more forgiving. We learn to forgive, and we learn that friendships are pretty important because as we age, we're going to lose some of our friends. Whether they move away, whether they die, all of that's going to happen. So we should be holding on to the ones that we have. And so we get better at it. So again, like I said, we get better at forgiving. We get better at being close. This thought of familism is really considering that your family is very important in your life. You support your family to the point of sacrificing many things. I am going to caution you here that we need to make sure our support of our Family of origin, so your parents, your brothers and your sisters, all of that, does not interfere with your family of choice, which is your new partner and possibly your children. Family closeness can sometimes be destructive. So for instance, let's say you have a brother that has relapsed for the 10th time. They need to go to a drug rehab center, and they come to you asking for $6,000 to go to a drug rehab center. And you've given them that money before. So this is the second or the third time they've asked you for money. Well, if you have it, in other words, if that money is readily available and it's not a hurt to you, that may be something you continue to do. However, if you have a spouse or a partner and you have children that you support, and taking $6,000 out of your account would really hurt your family of choice, this new family that you have, then you may want to set some limitations or some boundaries there, especially if you've done it already. Okay? Fictive kin. Fictive kin are people that we bring into our lives that are like family, but there's no blood relation. So I've mentioned to you, I'm a foster parent. I think of all of my foster kids as fictive kin. Right now I currently have 3 different foreign exchange students in my home, right? So I've got 2 from Japan and 1 from China that are with us right now. And I mean, I feel like they're family, but there's no blood relation, right? So that's fictive kin. Adult siblings, what we're saying here is your relationship with your brothers and sisters gets better as you get older. When you were younger, you may have fought all the time, or you may have had a big falling out over something very serious. But as we get older, that relationship becomes closer. This is good. So I just kind of mentioned to you, keeping the distinction between family of origin, which is the family you were born into, and family of choice, which is the new family. You have left the family of origin. You've left your parents' home to go and start your own life, and you have a new partner and you're starting your family. Keep those two, from interfering, I should say, in a negative way. I want them to be involved. Yes, my parents are directly involved in my family. My relatives, aunts and uncles are directly involved, yet their problems, I should say, don't become a hindrance to my family. All right, so work. So as I said, we're talking about that the developmental stage Erik Erikson talks about in middle adulthood is generativity versus stagnation. So what does that mean? Generativity means when we seek to be productive in a caring way. So there's some different ways that we can do that. A big one is going to be work. So maybe you're very creative. Maybe you start your own company. Right? You are productive in a caring way in your job. Another big one is going to be having a family, right? So these are ways that we can demonstrate generativity, this giving without just volunteer work, but this giving in that way. When we fail to achieve that generativity, when we fail to give in a caring way, we become what we call stagnant. So stagnant, the word means, think of it, if you were to step into mud, a really deep pit of mud, and you couldn't get out, you would be stagnant. So stagnant means we stay still. We're stuck in this same place, and I'm still, and I can't go forward, I really can't go back. And that's stagnation. It kind of means there's no growth going on. And so we want to know that there is growth, or that our life has been worth something. So again, the primary way, work is one way that we show this generativity, but another way is by being parents. When we become parents, and again, this doesn't need to be biological parents. This could be foster parents, adoptive parents, even fictive kin or mentoring children parents. When you do that, you are giving to the next generation. You're investing in the future. You are being productive in a caring way, and that's generativity. And this is how we typically think of accomplishing this goal in middle adulthood, right? So, caregiving for biological children. So yeah, parenting is really hard. It is. I mean, it's one of the hardest things you can do is to be a good parent. There's no book that comes with it. There's no manual. You got to figure it out. Hopefully you read books and you learn how to be a good parent. But it's really, really, it can be really stressful. And I will say, it's not just stressful during the toddler years, because all of my kids are over the age of 12. And so I have older children. It's still stressful. I'm still juggling the needs of attending sports events, meeting their emotional needs, helping so-and-so with dating, helping so-and-so to learn this about their identity, helping, the problems and issues are different, but the needs are still there. And so this process will continue on. Adoption, as I've mentioned to you before, I think it's really healthy that if we do adopt children, when they are age appropriate, that we tell them that. I don't want your children to feel that that they cannot trust you because you were not honest with them, that they are adopted. Some of us, sometimes when I walk around with my foster kids, people look at us and I can tell in their mind they're thinking, those people look different. That's not a biological family. That's like an adoptive family or a foster family. It doesn't bother me at all, right? I think difference is awesome. I think it's super cool when I see families that kind of look different or they come from different backgrounds. I think that makes it more exciting. But yeah, so this adoption, be honest and open with your kids. And this relationship is really similar to your biological children. Step parenting, again, it can be difficult in the sense that you have to earn the trust of those kids. If you blend families like we see in this picture, if you blend these families, you have to work at it. You have to work to develop trust, show them that you are there for them, that you're not going to maybe get divorced right away again, that this is a relationship. They don't want to think that they all fall in love with you as a step parent and then you're going to leave like their other parent did. That would be hurtful, right? All right, foster parenting. Again, the statistics are pretty morbid. They're pretty sad. So we have about 400,000 kids in foster care here in the U.S. alone. In our San Joaquin County here, we have about 1,600, so 1,600 kids in need of foster home. Many people don't want foster kids. If they do, they want the young ones. And so our older children are the ones who are ending up with no guidance, no mentor, nobody who to say, I care about you. I'm sorry this happened to you. I want to show you what it looks like to have a good, healthy relationship. And they end up aging out, becoming 18, going into adulthood with little to no skills and definitely a mistrust of the world. So this is a great need. Grandparenting. So grandparenting is starting earlier because a lot of times we're having our kids earlier. And grandparents can be very involved in this caregiving process. And that caregiving process is lifelong. In other words, I'm 53 and my mom will still ask me or cook for me. She'll still say, oh, I made your favorite dish for you, right? And I'm like, I'm 53, Mom. Like, you didn't have to take care of me. My mom loves me. And I hope that we continue that, right? This is not something that we should say ends at a certain time. The kin keeper is somebody in your family that keeps the family connected. So for instance, in my family, I have an aunt who's our kin keeper, right? My mom has 11 brothers and sisters. There was 12 kids total. And so that's a big family. And so this one aunt that I have had no children of her own. So she thinks of us as her children. And she organizes Thanksgivings, Christmases, birthday parties. She's the one that calls and tells us so-and-so had a baby, so-and-so moved. Every year she updates the family directory with all of our addresses and phone numbers. She is the kin keeper. She wants us to stay together. And then caring for your aging parents. So we're going to see that this is something that is part of this life process, and it can be very straining. In other words, it can be difficult because sometimes you'll have 4 kids, but only one of them steps up and the others, maybe they live far away or they just don't want to do it. And that puts a really great strain on the one child. And that's the sandwich generation. When maybe people like myself are in this position of being in the middle. I still have children living at home. My parents are going to be 80 and they need some support. So I am caregiving for 2 different generations. And that puts some strain on you to do that. But we're going to encounter more and more of this because our seniors are living longer. So we talked about how your work is something that really contributes to generativity. And again, our workplace diversity, which is a big thing now. If you become a manager, you're going to go to classes on being as culturally sensitive in the workplace and embracing diversity. And something to be aware of is what we call microaggressions. Microaggressions is these small things people say that hurt you. So for instance, if I had a meeting, I'm a manager, I have a meeting of all my staff, and I ask one of my employees a question, and Jim is 60 years old, and I ask Jim a question, and Jim pauses before he answers. So he kind of stops to think about his answer, and somebody else makes fun of Jim and says something like, "Oh, Jim, you must be having a senior moment." And everyone laughs. But really what you're doing is you're doing a microaggression because you're really making fun of Jim's age. That's what you're doing. And so they don't feel good. Microaggressions are tiny ways to be aggressive and hurt people. And so an example of a microaggression would be, I'm having a senior moment. A senior moment is when we say our elders need to kind of just, their mind's not working well. They need to think a lot about what they're going to say. It's not something we want to point out. Here we have only half or 50% of our employees are working the Monday through Friday 8 to 5 schedule. That's the traditional schedule. That means 50% of us have alternative schedules. Well, think about it with retail business, with hospital settings. We have those working swing shift, graveyard, working online from home, remote working. And so we have a lot more opportunity for a diverse kind of work schedule, which works really great when you're going to school. All right, guys, so go ahead and make sure to go through your clicker slides to reinforce the information. And I will see you next time as we jump into our final segment talking about late adulthood.